for any of you listeners, we've been massively privileged over the series to occasionally dip into pros who've just left the game, pros who are veterans, managers. But every now and again, we speak to somebody who is a living legend, but still living the dream, playing in Europe, dominating the scene at a club which is riding high in the Premier League, and one of the most revelatory England internationals of recent seasons. In this instance, it's Conor Coady. Conor, I'm not going to ask you if you recognise yourself, but I think the first question is, how did we persuade you to do this? You've no idea what you're in for here.
No, do you know what, mate? Max mentioned it to me, and it was something that I said, yeah, straight away. Listen, I enjoy doing things like this. It's something I enjoy doing, and it's something where when Max gave me the option of doing it, it's fantastic. So I'll give you everything I can, to be honest with you, mate. Legend.
Conor, I want to start because ever since I was a little boy in Aberdeen and in the 60s and 70s began to watch, my dad would take me to watch European football. Whether it was a friendly or not, something lit the torch in me when Fortuna Dusseldorf or Eintracht Frankfurt came to play at Pittodrie. It meant more to me. And I've talked to hundreds of elite footballers, coaches like you say, the league is everything, the league is everything. But I think there are elements in your life and your career that suggest that you share something of that thrill, that special goosebumps when it's European football. And I wonder if it started doing a training session as an 8-year-old at Anfield at halftime or just before the match on a European night. One, have I got the right Conor Coady?
I don't know who you spoke to. What's going on here?
I can't stop Stevie Highway, right? Stevie Highway, when I was a youngster, he had a hairstyle a little bit like yours, and back in the 70s, it was called a suede head. Cool as fuck then, cool as fuck now.
Yeah.
And Stevie Highway, who floated on the grass, Conor. You never saw him in his, but he just floated across the grass. And
okay.
I thought, Rolls-Royce footballer, that'll do for me. And I followed his development. Of course, he was the one who developed many, many players, but also Steven Gerrard. And so I watched his work, and I obviously didn't know at the time, but I think you were an Everton cadet, and Liverpool said, I wonder how we can get this guy who can pass the ball to come and join. So take us back, make the goosebumps go up on our neck. Take us back to the day when somebody says to you, listen, Conor, if you fancy it, you're going to come out at Anfield on a European night, and we're going to have a training session in front of the public.
You know what? I can remember it very vaguely. You've shocked me by putting that on my toes, I'll be fair. You've shocked me. No, when I was a kid, I was at both Everton and Liverpool, really, and you can be at both before the age of 8, 9, whatever it is now. And it was something where I was training at Everton, and it was fantastic. Do you know what I mean? It was great. It was a fantastic football club, but I was always a Liverpool fan. And I was always brought up a Liverpool fan through my dad when I was a kid and when I was a baby and things like that. And then Liverpool come and asked me to go down, which was great. And when you go back to that night, what you're talking about in European football, listen, for me, European football is huge, huge. Now it's massive. But I go back to that night, and I remember, obviously, like I said, I was a Liverpool fan. I idolised Liverpool. It was something I idolised. It was everything to a young lad. I think I can speak on behalf of quite a lot of young people in the country now. In the past, probably yourself, where you think to yourself, you get a chance to go and play on Anfield, or whether it was Aberdeen's ground for yourself. For me, it was Anfield, and I got the chance to do that. And I think it was half-time. I'll be honest with you. I think it was half-time. And we was in front of the Kop. So we were there in front of the Kop, and you come out and everyone gives you a bit of a clap. And I'll be honest with you, the crowd at the time probably didn't give two monkeys about what was happening at half-time. That's what you like, just when you brew, don't you? And you want to have a little bit of a chill before the second half starts. But for us as kids, it was goosebumps. It was incredible to come out the tunnel and have a little bit of a session on Anfield at half-time. It was absolutely amazing. And it's quite vague, to be honest. I can't remember too much about it, but all I can remember is the feeling of actually going out and doing that under the lights. Go on, mate.
Do you even remember when it was? Because in those days, must have been, there were two really massive runs. There was the Gerard Houllier year where they end up going to the UEFA final and beat Alaves. And then, 4 or 5 years later, there's the run that takes Liverpool to beat Milan in Istanbul.
Yeah.
And
I think it was more the Gerard Houllier era, because I think that was when I was really young at Liverpool, if I'm being honest with you, because I can remember massively the run to Istanbul and the run to Turkey to the final. That was, I said, it was incredible. And I think growing up and obviously following Liverpool and supporting Liverpool and how big they were in Europe, and going back to that run, you were massive underdogs in Istanbul. And I can really remember that run. Whereas with this, because I was so young, it's still a little bit vague. I still remember, like I said, more or less the feelings that I got coming out on that night, and knowing that, not knowing, just enjoying it. Because as a kid, you don't have worries, do you? You don't think about anything else other than playing football. And that's all I'd done. And I was getting this feeling of coming out at Anfield, and you're surrounded by 45,000 people. And for me, being a Liverpool fan, it was absolutely incredible, the feeling that you got, the goosebumps. You was nervous going out, even though he was going out having a knockabout with your mates on Anfield. It was an incredible feeling. And it was something that, like I said, there's not too much about the actual session that I can remember. It was more the feeling of actually coming out. But you've shocked me by putting that on my toes, I'll be honest with you.
I think it's remarkable, and it's a testament to your character that you know, I'm not sure if you even remember the opposition, because that season they played Dynamo Kiev and Boavista and Borussia Dortmund. Eventually played Barcelona too. But you treated it as like it's a brilliant phrase, Conor, a knockabout with my mates. When, you know, a lot of kids have been going, this is already my European Cup final. And I'd imagine for your parents, I imagine your dad must have been beside himself, I guess.
Oh, listen, it was incredible. And I always remember when you used to get tickets from Liverpool through the academy, it used to sit in, like, so where the old main stand was, you come out the tunnel, and then your tickets used to be up right in the right-hand corner, like next to the Kop. You'd have the Kop and you'd have the main stand to the right, and your tickets would be right in the right-hand corner. So I remembered where they were. You always know where they were, because that was where all the academy tickets were. So as soon as you come out, you're straight up looking at them. And you just know, for a parent, I'm the same. Now I've got 3 boys, and the feeling I'd get for something like that would be absolutely incredible. So yeah, for my dad, it was absolutely amazing. But even now, my parents, my wife, and everybody come to every game. It's fantastic. It's a brilliant feeling.
What did they, if you can bottle it up, what did that era, when I think Steve Iwood would have still been in charge for several of the years that you were in the youth system, and eventually you played for Steve Cooper, Rodolfo Borrell, who was at Barcelona, who when I first arrived here phoned me up and said, listen, and I'm sorry to quote him, but he said, listen, I've won everything at youth level. I'm a fucking top coach, but look at me. He said, look at my size, look at my weight. They only want golden boys here. They won't give me a job. Literally. Right. And he said, can you help me get to England? And now he's at Manchester City.
What a man. What a man he is, mate. Brilliant person.
Well, let's talk about them. What did these men teach you when you were a youngster, when you're at your most easily formed, that you value now looking back at them?
Do you know what? And I'll be totally honest here. They always made me better players. Every single one of them people you've just mentioned there, Steve Iwood, Steve Cooper, Rodolfo Borrell, Frank McPartland, we can go to as well, who was fantastic. They all made me better players. They all made me a better player, sorry. And I think that's evident with how I've grown. But, you know, more importantly, I look back on it now as a little bit more of an experienced head, an experienced player. It made me a better person. Honestly, I was always a person who was willing to learn. I was always a person who was willing to adapt to different things, because I think what people don't understand with footballers these days and young kids growing up now, it's a massive willingness to adapt. You've got that many different people who take over you every year. Different managers come in, different directors at youth level, different under 23s managers. Then you'll go to the first team, you'll have a different manager. And then obviously managers change quite a bit these days as well. So I think it's massive that you adapt. And that's the biggest thing I can say about coming up through that youth system at Liverpool, that take away the football situation. I always wanted to be a footballer, and they made me a better player. But I think more importantly, they made me a better person in terms of how to cope with life, how to cope with being a footballer, how to improve, and know that you keep that willingness to learn. Even now at the age of 27, 28, there's still that willingness to get better. And that all comes from being a 6-7-year-old kid at the academy, where these people are moulding me into a certain person. And that's the biggest thing I can say about the people who looked after me when I was at Liverpool.
I did go on about this so much that the listeners will be throwing pineapples at the computer screen, but 2015 I went to interview my all-time idol Johan Cruyff, who I'd met before, but it was his last ever interview before he died. It was an hour long in Berlin, and at that forum, brilliant forum, there was Thomas Tuchel, who was then the Dortmund coach. And he stood up and said that he'd made his reputation at Mainz, and at Mainz he'd been in charge of the youth, and he said, I demanded everything had to be the best, and you know, I wanted Rolls Royce treatment for the kids to make them feel. And he said, now if I went back, I'd make it tougher for them. I'd turn off the aircon, I'd make sure they had to wash their own kit, I'd tell the driver to pretend the bus was broken down and ask them how the fuck we were going to get the game up. Problems. Yeah. You've touched on two things I want to, before we move on to the European theme again, two things you said there that reminded me of that. One, Conor, I say this in inverted commas, to make you a better person. The outside perception, one of the reasons we founded this podcast, is that people in football don't care about being a better person. So one, why have you focused on that? And I love it because I believe it, and it matters because better people will make better footballers. Point full stop. They'll work hard, they'll have open minds, they'll eventually be leaders and a good representative for themselves, the team and the club. But I want you to talk about that. And secondly, I've heard people, I don't know if it was Rodolfo, talking about you as having a natural ability as a youngster to think about how to overcome hurdles, to solve problems. Talk about those two things, the value of being a better person, how they did it, if there are examples, and your problem-solving nature.
Yeah, I always think now, I look back on me, on myself as a kid, I look at myself now, and it's a massive part of life. I think that's a huge part of life. And I think the earlier you can learn that, the better it is. I think problem solving, you have problems every single day. Look at the world now. We have problems every single day. The world now it's upside down. Do you know what I mean? And listen, we all want to get back to where we were sooner rather than later, but there's problems every single day. And do you know what was a big part for me? I had a spell when I was at Liverpool that must have been about 13, 14. And my mum and dad got pulled in. And he said to me, mum and dad, listen, I was going through a big growth spurt. Do you know what I mean? At the time, I was slow. My legs were all over the place. My arms were all over the place. This sort of thing. Honestly, it was one of them.
Yeah. And
I weren't playing that well. Do you know what I mean? I look back on it, I weren't playing that well. I wasn't really improving the way I probably wanted to improve, and people wanted me to improve. But there was bigger factors going on with my body developing. I was still a kid. I remember they took my mum and dad in and said, listen, he's got a few months here otherwise. Because we were getting to the point where it was getting to a scholarship at 15, 16. And it got to a point where they pulled my mum and dad in and said, listen, he's got a few months because we don't think he's developing how we want him to develop. And if he doesn't get to the point in a few months where we want him to be, we're going to have to let him go. So my dad come home and told me that my dad's massive. Do you know what I mean? My dad's always been very hands-on with football, and he'd come home and he was gutted, my dad, and he pulled me to one side and I burst out crying. It was the end of the world. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the world for a young kid who wanted to play football at his boyhood club, who he'd supported since he was a baby. It was the end of the world for me. I remember my dad sitting me down. My dad was fantastic. He said, listen, son, he said, your body will go how it wants to go. He said, you will improve how you improve because of the type of person you are. He said, don't overthink it. Don't worry about it. Just go and enjoy the football. He said, if it's 2 months of playing with Liverpool, fantastic. We take 2 months. If it's further than that, we go further than that. But listen, enjoy what you've got now. So, and you know what? That calmed me down. It was fantastic because I had my dad saying that sort of things to me. Even though I knew deep down he'd have been absolutely gutted with the conversation he just had. Do you know what I mean? I look at it now and that's how it would have been. And I think that experience that I had in my life was massive for me moving forward. Now, not every kid has that experience, but I look back on my own experience and I think that experience was huge for me. Problem solving, taking things on myself by making sure I could try and make things happen as much as possible. And as well, trying to help people as much as possible. It's not just me who go through them sorts of things. I mean, people every day go through them sorts of things. So I think that was a massive experience on my life, if I'm being honest with you, because I came through that period and then I got my scholarship a few months later. And then all of a sudden you look back and you go, a few months ago I got told I was getting released in a couple of months. It was a mad situation. Do you know what I mean? And I think looking at that experience made me a better person, but also in terms of problem solving, that was a huge factor in how I then went about growing up and getting better.
I think one of the reasons that both Next Generation and the UEFA Youth League were formed were to try and show young footballers thematically the same as you're talking about. You're talking about growth spurt, personality, support from your dad, and coming through it. But both Next Gen and the Youth League were supposed to say, all right, you haven't had a lot of experience about where's my passport, what's this food that I'm eating in Slovakia, why is this temperature different? All these little things that now, as grown-ups, we laugh at, but as kids, you're not equipped to deal with. Now, we have people called socios, Conor, who've been our longest supporters. They're like season ticket holders. And one of them is Chris Hennigan. And Chris has written this very well, and it's thematically linked to what you've just said. Hi, Conor. As a Scouser and fellow Red, I'm intrigued to find out whether playing in the Next Gen series during your younger years with the mighty Reds, I think he means Aberdeen, in any way prepared you for playing in such a dynamic, yet still largely continental style at Wolves. And that's Chris from Litherland, brackets, home of the greats. And, you know, it was with Rodolfo and Steve that you played Next Gen. I mean, I don't want to be cheeky, but what the fuck happened to the Gerd Muller you used to be, because you scored about every 10 minutes in the Next Gen series?
Yeah.
Didn't you just?
Yeah.
And you played Inter, and you played Spurs, and you played Molde, and you played Borussia Dortmund, you played a couple of Portuguese clubs as well. You played massive clubs at youth level. I want to know your best memory from that, your worst memory from that, and what did that do for you?
I'll tell you what, I've got all them for you. The time, it was incredible. Honestly, I look back at that time, and it was a fantastic part of my life. That was brilliant. I remember when they brought it in, and we got told about it, and the excitement that came as a kid to know we're going to Dortmund. We played Spurs at White Hart Lane, the old White Hart Lane. We went to Molde and played in Norway. We, like you said, you played Inter Milan at St. Helens, the rugby ground. Honestly, it was the feeling of going to play these teams, but also knowing you're playing them in stadiums. We weren't used to playing in stadiums. It was like the Youth Cup all over again, because when you played Youth Cup, it was exactly the same, going playing these big grounds as a kid. And it was the same as that, but also knowing that you were walking out in Europe with Liverpool. It was amazing. It was incredible. The best memory I can say, we went to Borussia Dortmund, and I'll always remember the trip because they took us on a tour around the ground. Do you know what I mean? You know, the big wall.
It's nuts, isn't it? The yellow black wall and signal.
Honestly,
it's
I can't even tell you. It was incredible, right? Absolutely incredible. We went for a walk around there. I remember thinking to myself, "Jesus, can you imagine being a player here, playing Champions League or whatever you're playing in, and listening to the noise and all that?" It was incredible. And they had a little ground next to the main stadium. We played there, scored in the game, scored a header, flicked it on, and it was a great. We ended up winning. I can't remember what score it was. Ended up scoring. We won. And it was brilliant. Then we played them at St. Helens as well, and I scored in the game there. I think it was a penalty. And that feeling of knowing you're playing Borussia Dortmund, walking out in Germany, playing against a team like this, scoring in the game, winning, the whole emotion was fantastic. And like I said, I can only go back to the start of it when we got told we were going to play in this competition, and I was eligible to play in it, going, wow, this will be amazing. What a competition this will be. And I know they've got the Youth Champions League or whatever it is now, but that for me was a massive part of my life, honestly. I think the worst memory I had from it, we play. I don't know if you've probably seen it with all the stats and everything you've got there. I'll be honest with you, Ajax.
It's got to be Ajax.
And I'll go back to it. I have a little story about it. We had a great team. Honestly, we had a great team. Rodolfo, and it was 0-0, and we'd won a penalty, and I was the penalty taker. Right, even though you might not think it now, because I don't go anywhere near penalties now. And when I took a penalty, I've been saying whatever. But I was a penalty taker. And we had Suso playing with us, who plays now for Sevilla. We played him last year in Europa League, in the quarters. Fantastic footballer, mate. Honestly, I can't explain it.
Lopetegui loves him.
What a fantastic football player he is, by the way. He was playing the game, and if I look back, he probably should have been a penalty taker, but I was the penalty taker. He takes the ball, and I was one of them people. I would never go and start scrapping for the ball or whatever. I'll take the ball. Do you know what I mean? And he missed a pen, and he always look back on that game, and loads of people even say it to me now. If you'd have took that pen, it might have been different. Because we got walloped 6-0 in the game. They were, by the way, what a team they were. Honestly, God. So some of the players, it's still playing now. Klassen, who's at Ajax. Do you know what I mean? A few players, they had a few special things.
Did it feel like a different brand of football at that stage? Movement and space and position? Because that must have been something that you hadn't encountered, I guess.
Massively. And that was the big game that I thought it. I'll be honest with you. The movements, the way they played, everything was 1 and 2 touch. It was so fast. Honestly, we'd gone from being kids where you take 2 and 3 and you can settle yourself a little bit, you can look, you can slow the game down. They were just 100 mile an hour with and without the ball. And it was different level, honestly. But like I said, I look back to that moment now and I think, that's a little story. I wonder if they scored that penalty, it might have been a little bit different. Because then from then, they just took control and they just wiped the floor to us and wiped the floor with us. And the biggest thing about it, I think, there was about 10 or 12,000 there at the ground watching it. And we just been walloped 6-0. I was embarrassed. You know, when you come in and you're just embarrassed and you don't want to go out. And it was like, walloped there. But then when you look back, you go, the massive learning curve, but what a team we come up against. Honestly, what a team. It was incredible.
Do you want to throw you something about that, Goosebumps? Because I love this. I said to you at the beginning off tape that, you know, I'm a weirdo. But, you know, you grow up, I think you grow up near St. Helens, Haydock, next to the races. There's a brilliant hotel there where lots of football teams stay if they're going to play Liverpool, Everton, Manchester United, Blackburn, whatever it is. Fuck's sake, you know, you walk out for Liverpool against Inter or Borussia Dortmund, not at Anfield, not at the training ground, in your hometown.
Yeah, it was huge. It was huge, honestly. And the amount of people I had there that night, and I still have people now who I'll see in town when I go home or different things, and they'll mention it to me. They'll mention the games to me. I remember watching you at St. Helens. Oh yeah, who against? Ajax. I'm like, fuck it, don't leave that away. Don't mention that game to me.
Exactly.
Go on, leave that. Do you know one of them? Like one of them. I seen you play one time. I did, yeah. Well, yeah, when?
Please make it into a Borussia Dortmund. Yeah,
please be the other one when I scored or something like that. I've done all right, but honestly, it's and by the way, I love growing up there. What a fantastic place to grow up. Kept me grounded. Everything about it. I love growing up there, and then playing there was brilliant because all my mates were there, all my family was there, everybody who was associated with me was there. But like I said, I was a bit embarrassed after the game. To be honest,
you know, you did for Inter, you did for Borussia Dortmund. Ajax was special. I wonder how all this brings us forward to, you know, I want to cut to what was a monumental campaign last season. And I don't want to go through Europe play by play with Wolves. I want to stick to our theme of the experiences because, you know, it's a little Himalaya to qualify for that competition. And, you know, from my way of thinking, you can pick any of the qualifying matches that you want to speak about and remember, but you know, Torino have long been bastions of Serie A. Mazzari coached them that day, you know, had been a couple of seasons before Serie A Coach of the Year. You know, his work at Samp and Napoli was special. I don't know how you found Sasa to deal with. He's a bit of a nutter, but he's a big old beast and he'll run you around. I think he's completely local. He was at Valencia and every single day the whole country was watching the battle between Simone Zaza and well, maybe it was, I can't remember if it was Nuno, but I think it might have been Nuno. So Zaza is there, and you fuck me, you go and win in Italy. You go and win in Turin, one of the great, if you put Torino and Juventus together, one of the great European cities. So in the qualifying, go to what your mind takes you to, but that's the one that stuck with me.
Yeah, so I'll start off from the beginning, to be fair, because obviously we were waiting on. So when we qualified for it, we were waiting on obviously Watford and City in the FA Cup, and we wanted obviously City to win because we finished 7th and all this sort of stuff. And then obviously when City had won, the manager just put a little, it's like a GIF, you know what I mean, in a group chat, and it was the Europa League, like the GIF of the Europa League coming out. And honestly, the feeling you got from it, I think because I've been at the club for so many years, I think it's something where the pride I got at the fact that this club had got to that certain situation was immense. Honestly, the feeling I get playing for this football club is incredible. I feel like I'm at home. It's everything that I ever dreamed of playing for this football club. So to take it to be involved in the team, who's got to a Europa League is absolutely incredible. And I look back and you go through the qualifiers, and the biggest thing for me was the travelling. I loved every part of it. And you know what's crazy is when people say, God, the travelling's hard, which I admit it is, because you go from a Thursday to a Sunday or a Thursday to a Monday, whatever it is in the games. But the travelling, I loved every part of it. I loved training in the morning and going to the airport, or getting on the plane and travelling out and having your food and trying the different foods. And maybe I look back on the next gen and that maybe gave me some sort of experience of it. But the feeling of doing that, mate, honestly, was absolutely incredible. And the Torino one sticks out massively out to the qualifiers, just because it was like going into a Coliseum. Honestly, you know, the ground, it was like one of them big, massive oval grounds. It had like the bit of a track. It had like fences before the stands. Do you know what I mean? And the fences will kind of keep you from the ground. And it's something where the feeling that you get from playing in something like that was absolutely incredible. And like you said, we scored early. I think it was an own goal. I think Saiz went up and we ended up scoring.
It was an own goal, Bremer own goal. You're right.
Yeah, it was an own goal. And then obviously Adama works a bit of magic second half. And we should have actually won the game 3-1 or something like that. But you know, you obviously mentioned Zaza. Velocity was a big one, mate. Velocity was a top player. You know, the striker. Oh, he's a top player.
He scores the penalty, doesn't he?
Yeah, he scores the penalty, and then he scored, I think, at Molineux as well when we played them in the second leg. But he was a top player, mate. Real handful, strong, great in the air, could finish 1 and 2 touch, and he was really something where you look back to last season, and you look at how the Europa League went. He gave me some sort of experience on this is going to be tough this year. This competition is going to be really tough, because that was so early in the competition. And he was such a handful, but the whole feeling of winning out, the feeling in the change room after the game, and then travelling back on the plane, doing your recovery on the plane, doing what we'd done, was absolutely incredible. And the other one was, obviously, we went to Armenia, didn't we? Yeah. So we went to Armenia, played in Punic, won 4-0.
Punic.
Yeah. But we played there on the Thursday, so the flight was about 5 hours. I remember getting back 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then we played Leicester on the Sunday. I remember thinking before we went to Armenia, God, this is going to be a real test of how our start of the season's going to be. And we went into the Leicester game and we done all right. We played well. And that feeling I got from doing that gave me so much confidence going forward, because I had so many people telling me, it's going to be so hard for you boys this year. It's going to be so hard for you boys this year. It's so hard, the Europa League. And honestly, I can't speak more highly of that competition because it was absolutely incredible. I loved every part of it.
What do you think is the bit inside you that likes the travelling? Because I recognise it. Now, the boys and I, we're only doing Zoom because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
95% of our 106 interviews I've done by flying to England, Denmark, Ireland, I don't know where. And as much as you might be pissed off about getting up at 5 a.m, as much as you might be tired, something about airports, flights, in my case, fooling around a little bit, I muck around, a little bit of mischief. You know, I don't mind putting a spoke in people's wheels, or just a little bit chit chat with a stewardess, whatever it might be. Apart from representing your club, you're well paid, you're a great professional. You said something that got a. What is it about setting off?
It's an excitement.
Traveling.
It's an excitement. Honestly, we used to train here. So on like the far flight, the ones where you fly far away. So the army. And when we went to Besiktas, which was incredible, and we'll probably get onto that in a bit, which was absolutely amazing. We trained in the morning. But what I used to love was flying. So getting to training, you'd have something to eat. Getting to the training ground, you'd have something to eat. Straight to the airport, and then you'd train in the ground the night before. And I thought it was incredible getting this experience of actually training in the stadium. We used to do it at Molineux before the home games. Training in the stadium, putting your boots on and actually going out and feeling the ground before you actually played in it the night after. And honestly, it was an excitement. It was just, I might have been like a bit of a young boy, to be honest. And that was how it felt for me, just loving playing football and loving this new experience of going into European games with this football club. It was absolutely immense. And like I said, I think it was just a feeling of excitement because the lads had worked so hard to get there over the previous season, where we got to an FA Cup semi. We'd finished 7th, which was amazing for this football club. And it was an excitement to see how far we could actually go, because the manager said to us right at the start that we were never going to go in just to make up the numbers. It was to go in and try and do the best we can to try and take this club as far as possible.
He's a proud man, and maybe you want to not answer this because I'm going to ask you straight. How pissed off was he at losing to Sporting Braga in the opening game? Because he's Portuguese. Yeah. Sporting Braga are not to be underestimated either in their history. They're not a famous team, but they were decent. They managed to take a point. Well, take a point. It was a group stage in the return leg, so they weren't pushovers. But aside from wanting to win, aside from being very intense about performance, just going to Portugal on Wolves' first group game in the Europa League and losing to Sporting Braga, he must have been pissed off.
Yeah, and you know what he's like it? He's like it after every game, to be fair. It's something where you know about it, when he knows we've had a bad result or you've not played well, or even if you've won, but you've not had a good performance. So
a black thundercloud above the head before a word is said.
Yeah, you know about it, mate, believe me. And it's something where we know him as a manager. He knows us as players. And we know how he reacts to different things. And we know when we have to improve. We've got to improve every single day. We know when we've had a bad performance, and we know when these things are happening. So, yeah, he went up. But Joe, go back to that game. I think it was a bit of an eye-opener for us. I do. I think it was a bit of an eye-opener for us as a team in terms of we had Braga coming in. I would never say we underestimated them because we've never done that against any team in Europe. But I think it was a little bit of a different way of playing. I think it was something where we were into the group stages of the Europa League and we was obviously playing against a better team than probably the qualifiers. Mm-hmm. And it was something where they started to move the ball. The game management was fantastic. They slowed the game down. They threw themselves on the floor, won fouls, all little things like this. And to us, that was new. That was new to us. And I think that gave us a little bit of an eye-opener in terms of showing us how these European teams do things, because we need to match it. We need to be better at them and doing their sorts of things. And we learned from that game. We really did.
Trincao came on. He's at Barcelona at the moment. The level was good. I know you didn't underestimate them, but I think when you get to the Europa League, teams that have got that far tend to be smart. They're either very good, or if the playing resources aren't fantastic, the brains are good. Yeah. And you mentioned Besiktas, and I think that I don't know what will stand out for you apart from the brilliance of winning late, which is very, very special. A group stage to equalise the home defeat, to immediately bounce back is very special. But Istanbul itself is a bewildering city. And I know pro footballers, unless you're lucky, it's airport, hotel, training, hotel, and fuck the cultural experience. But as you fly in, you see the massively wide river, it's Asia meets Europe, literally divided. The sounds, the smells, the sights, are different, and maybe you had a holiday there. But what is it about winning at Besiktas? Total picture that sticks out for you.
So first and foremost, it was amazing. This is the one that I remember. I remember it all. But one that sticks out in my head was this. I loved every part of it, honestly. And we never took. So this was one where we trained at the training ground before we went. So we trained first, and then we flew. We got there late, and I was doing the press conference, and everyone was going a bit mad. They couldn't believe that we got there late. We ended up doing the press conference about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And we were all a bit like, this is a bit mad. But to us, it was just, honest to God, it was just excitement. We had our food late. Food was amazing, and our hotel. What I remember was our hotel looked over the Vodafone Park. So it looked over, so you could see inside the ground from our hotel.
Nice.
So you had our hotel, you had the ground, and then you had the river. So you could see right over the river to the other side. It was it. And then what we tend to do on game days, when it's a long day and we play on the night, we tend to have a bit of a coffee, you know what I mean, in the day. So me, John, a few of the boys tend to go down, have a bit of just to break the day up, really, so you're not sat in your room all day.
Yeah.
And we sat down in reception. Reception was lovely, dead marble floors and all this sort of things, you know what I mean? And honestly, it was incredible. And I remember the game weren't the best. We done what Wolves have tended to do. We stay in it, we stick in it. Do you know what I mean? We defend well, we stay together, we're close, we're compact, we work hard. And we stuck in the game to the last minute. And that feeling when the goal goes in, and we go back to the manager again after the game, and everyone was ecstatic, everyone was elated. It was a sense of relief, to be honest, because like you said, we'd bounced straight back from the first game, which was massive for us to do it in that situation. And we were all still learning. So we were learning as well as winning at the time. I remember coming into the changing room after, and we were all, like I said, we were all on top of the world. And the gaffer kind of come in and said, we need to play better. And he was right. But the feeling you actually got, it kind of just was just like, right, okay, let's just take a minute. It's a fantastic game. And the gaffer was spot on. We need to do better. If we're going to do well and we're going to get out of this group stage, we need to play better. And these first two games were massive for us moving forward. Absolutely massive. But the feeling of actually going there, and like I said, we trained there in the morning, we flew a 4-hour flight or something like that, but no one cared. Honestly, no one cared a dicky bird about it, because we were just going playing in Europe for Wolves. It was absolutely incredible. And honestly, I can't speak more highly of going out there and obviously doing what we've done.
The role of win-win-win, thumping Espanyol, who are a better side, playing against Sergi Darder, who was in the Spain team that you beat to win the European Championship in 2010. I don't know if you knew that Sergi Darder was a repeat from maybe your most glorious England moment to date, and played in that game where you pumped them 4-0. The Sevilla match, Suso aside, what the fuck? Wolves score late, not opposition. They did a Wolves.
They did.
What have you learned from that? Sore as it is, you lost to the winners, serial winners of that competition. Yeah. What have you learned?
Everything. But I know you say that they done a Wolves in terms of scoring late, but they were good. They moved the ball. They took us to spaces we didn't want to be in. We defended well, and we wanted to stick in, and we were nearly there. As the game goes on, you tend to learn a lot about how the game's going to go as the game goes on. And we knew before the game how much of a top footballing team they were. We knew that. Do you know what I mean? I think everybody knew that. Before you go into play, before you watch them, you know how much of a top footballing team they are. We had a plan of, as I said, doing the Wolves, sticking in there, staying in the game as long as possible, counter-attacking at speed, how we know we can, but defending well. And we were so close. And I think that was the biggest thing. And I think looking at them and the confidence on the ball, the confidence to move it side to side, the confidence to be patient, I don't think you see that often no more, because supporters and everybody want you to score every time you go forward.
Urgent.
They were patient with everything they've done. They go out, okay, they don't care, they go back. Okay, they go back. Okay, they go back. And you're just moving. You've got to remember, as footballers against that, you're just moving side to side.
Is the name Banega coming through from what you're saying?
Banega. What a player.
Isn't he a fucking Rolls Royce?
Honestly, it's just incredible. I go back to it as well. You know about these players before you play them. And you tend to think you know what to expect. You don't. You can watch all the clips in the world. Honestly, I watched a million clips on all their plays before the game. We do it before every game, just to try and get like a little bit of an insight, trying to get a little bit of a heads up in terms of what you're going to come up against. You can't, because these players are so clever. You go into a situation where you feel like you're going to get him, and he'll go to a different situation, because he's that quick in his brain. He's that quick mentally. And he just puts himself in different situations. And what a player he is. But I can go through all their team. Centre half, Koundé.
Koundé. Again, in his first senior season.
Absolutely phenomenal, mate. Absolutely phenomenal. And honestly, they were brilliant. But like I said, that was the gutting thing about it with us, that we were very, very nearly there. And that we were nearly there. And obviously, we can see like we did at the end, obviously, with the Hebra. He was a great player as well, by the way, at Campos. He was fantastic. But the fact that we were nearly there, and we kind of threw it away at the last minute because we always knew, I think we conceded 85 plus or whatever it was always going to be tough to get back in the game then. Do you know what I mean? You go for it, but you put that much energy into the first 85 minutes where you're moving side to side, you're trying to block up your goal, you're trying to defend your box, you're trying to step out when you can, you're trying to get onto second balls, that you know that when they score in that moment, it's going to be hard to get back, even though you try with all your heart to get back into it.
And the tail of another missed penalty, which, you know, penalties became a theme in England. I think you've had a shootout miss as well. I don't know if that would have made the difference that day, but getting ahead is always
I think, and you know what, you would never ever point the finger at anybody. Listen, Ralph Jimenez is a phenomenal footballer, and what he done for us that day, by the way, off the ball, I don't think people understand, and I say it quite a lot in interviews, in terms of a lot of people ask me about Ralph, and he's an incredible footballer, but for us, what he does off the ball is absolutely remarkable. Honestly, what he does for this team, how he goes about it, how clever he is, and what the things he does off the ball, he's absolutely fantastic. And like I said, you would never point the finger at anyone because he's such a phenomenal footballer.
Fair comment. Right, we've got great sponsors. We're at the halfway point. We're great sponsors. They are Bet365, and they've asked specifically, they've quoted Nuno. They've said that Nuno has spoken about this year marking, in quotes, a new cycle for Wolves. So they've said what changes are the team trying to make to the style of play. I'm not sure. So I'd rather say to you, Conor, what do you interpret Nuno as meaning about this being a new cycle? Is it partly about adapting to new expectations and a new level?
Yeah, I think we're always trying to do that. We're always trying to improve. I think every team will tell you in the Premier League, every team who are in Europe will tell you that they're always trying to improve, they're always trying to evolve, and we're no different. We've evolved every single season. And I think the big thing to look at with it is the fact of when players come out, when players go out of a club and when players come in, you're always going to get that. You're always going to try and make them gel as much as possible. It's important that the new players coming in as a captain, as players within here, you try and make them gel as much as possible and try and make them feel at home. So I think that's obvious. And I think with the manager saying that, it's something that we need to do. You've always got to be moving in this league. You've always got to be moving if you want to improve. And that's something we need to be doing. So it's not necessarily finding different ways of playing. We always want to keep that core and keep that balance and keep that shape and organisation of our team. But it's finding different ideas within the system where we can get at teams and find different ways of beating teams. And I think you've seen that over the 3 years, 4 years that the manager's been in. From the Championship days now, we've never changed the system. We've never changed the way we do things. There's just ideas within that system that we've evolved over time, which has been fantastic.
Evolution is very important, very special. And it strikes me now that the ideas about culture, you've helped me a lot by mentioning a couple of themes here now that we're going to roll home on. And I think you're a guy who loves the culture that Nuno's introduced about self-demanding, improvement. And all of us need to look, rather than saying, somebody's told me I've got to improve, it's all about us every hour, every day, in small ways or big ways, how can you improve? And if you don't, you coast. And there's a lot of people reach levels in every walk of life, not just in football. They don't know they're coasting, and a lot of people do know they're coasting, and they're just not hungry enough to keep on going. But there's another culture, and that improvement and hunger culture. You talked about recuperation. You talked about recovery. I'm old enough to remember footballers who drank a lot. Yeah. I'm old enough to remember footballers who came back after pre-season a stone overweight, and that was natural, and you run it off. You run the beer off in training. I'm old enough to have remembered Arsene Wenger causing a fucking riot in the bus home from Blackburn by saying no sweeties, and Ray Parlour chanting we want our sweeties back. Right. Gordon Strachan mentioning that he tried seaweed and bananas in his porridge, and everybody thought, the way to become a super player is eat bananas. And Gordon's like, no, lifestyle, you fucking idiots. Yeah. Yoga. If you talked about footballers doing yoga when I was 17, there'd have been a fist fight. Okay, let's just admit that. But all of these things are now true. Yeah. Dramatic decrease in alcohol use, sugar, awareness of what to eat, stretching, yoga, sleep, all that kind of stuff. But I think you're in a culture, and that's the word I'm asking about, a culture whereby, because of in pre-season, everybody being asked to buy into everything, I want to know about it. What does recuperation mean if you're a Wolves player in detail? Because I think it will interest our listeners, but also I think there's things you can take into your own personal life, whether you're an elite footballer that you or not. What's the culture of recovery, and how did it begin at Wolves?
Well, first and foremost, it's vital. It's vital to everything we do. I think a massive factor's got to go to our sports science staff. We've got Antonio and Joao Lapper and a fella, Sean Miller and Tom Mayer, who go to the end of the earth for us, if I'm being honest with you, to make sure we recover properly, to make sure we're doing the right things. Now, the right things are absolutely everything. Last year was huge for us. If I go back to last year with the amount of games we had in terms of Europa League going Thursday, Sunday, we were recovering on planes. We were recovering in changing rooms straight after the Besiktas game and a Torino game. We're recovering straight away. You're literally coming off the game. The boss is speaking for 5 minutes, and then Antonio's going, right, on your mats, let's go. And that then consists of, we have vibration balls, vibration rollers, complex machines, of course. They basically send like electrodes into your muscles to improve like blood flow.
Do you attach them to your muscles?
Yeah, so you attach them to your legs.
Pads.
Yeah, little pads, yeah. And then you attach them and it increases blood flow through your legs. But lads use them when they're injured and different things. But you can use them, obviously, in recovery session. You do ice baths, you do pools, you do complex, you do Normatec, it's called, like big inflatable trousers. They're mad. So you sit with them on and you've got a machine.
We'll talk about them because people won't know. What are your inflatable trousers?
So basically, you put them on and you just lie there on the bed, and they've got you've got like a remote with it, so you put it on level, whatever it is, 7, 8, 9, whatever, and it basically blows up through your legs. So as it goes up through your legs, it goes tighter and tighter and tighter, and it's meant to just release all the bad, whatever it is, the bad stuff you've got in your legs, whatever it is, and you'll keep it on for 20 minutes or so. We have things like that. So
that'd be like lactic acid, for example, because lactic acid is. And it might feel like when you're getting your blood pressure taken in one point of your arm,
and it goes really tight. Yeah, and it goes really tight. And it goes right up to the top of your leg to where like your hips are, type thing. Goes right up the top, and it kind of pumps out all the lactic acid or whatever you've got in your legs out to you. And I'll tell you what, you do feel good after it. You do feel really good after it. But we have all these things, and honestly, it's huge for us. And I think even now, even without as many games as we had last season, it's important that you do. So we tend to have 2 days recovery. So you do like straight after the game, you tend to be off your feet straight away. You do the inflatable trials, you do the complex, you do stretching, you do the foam rollers, you do all this sort of pool, bike, and you don't go out on the grass. And then second day recovery is out on the grass for a real light session. Really, you'll tend to go out, do the warm up, do a little bit of a light session, do a light jog around the pitch, and then back in. And what we do inside on a second day recovery is the only time I've experienced this at our club, and honestly, it works so well for us. We do like a strength circuit. It is on like vibration platforms and things like that. And you tend to say if you load up your muscles at that sort of point, it'll affect you in the game with not getting as many injuries for players, because your legs will be getting stronger and knowing how to cope with being tired. You know what I mean? So if you're doing a strength session when you're tired, your legs are then feeling, hang on a minute, I'm knackered here, but I'm still working. So it tends to help going into a game, and that's been massive for us. And that's been something that Antonio and Joao brought in since they come to the club 3-4 years ago. And it's brilliant. Honestly, it's absolutely brilliant. And touch wood, I don't want to speak too soon. The injury record.
Oh no. Let's put that aside, because things can happen. But what we're talking about is a change of mind, a change of culture, and something that once you buy into. So, for example, as a fascinated listener, we're by Zoom. If I was in the same room as you, I'd be feeling better. I'd be feeling lactic acid going out because you believe, and you said I feel better. But without naming names in your dressing room, footballers are a bunch of fucking moaners. They don't like anything new. They don't like anything that might make them feel embarrassed. Yeah. When the puffy trousers went on the first time, there will have been some fucking comments that could never ever be aired. Of course. How has the convincing process, ice baths, for example? Yeah. I read once about one of your rehab staff asking guys to get together to the ice baths. Now, I'm talking for me in this instance. Yeah. I'd be like, you can dock my wages, you can fucking transfer me to Tranmere if you want, but I'm not getting in a fucking ice bath with another man. Don't fucking stop. I think that attitude, maybe I'm out of date and it doesn't happen, but I think that's a predominant attitude in British football. Yet your culture has changed. How? Massively. And do you know what? I think it's the people who are here. I think it's knowing the sort of manager that was coming to this football club. I can only speak on behalf of myself when I was here before. And I knew when our manager come in, the calibre of manager who was coming to our club. And I knew that he could improve me as a player, as a person, and us as a club and us as a whole. And I think when he come in and he brought the players and he did, I think they changed the culture. I think you're seeing these players coming in who had worked with him before, your Ruben Neveses, your Jotas, your Bollies, and they're coming in and all of a sudden they're just slotting straight into doing these recovery sessions. They're slotting straight into doing these strength sessions. And I think that was massive on the English boys before, because
they then go, hang on a minute, these boys are playing the Champions League. These boys are playing for Porto. These boys are playing for whoever it may be. And you're going, yeah, this is all right. This is going to make us better. This is going to improve us. And the one thing I do agree with you in terms of we have a culture in England. I do agree with that. But it's not saying everybody still wants to improve. Everybody still wants to find ways of getting better. And we were no different when our manager come in. And like I said, you're seeing these players coming in. And I think that was the biggest thing of a culture change, that the players who come into this football club came in to change the direction of the football club. They wanted to come to Wolves in the Championship at the time. And the respect that I have for them for doing that is absolutely incredible. Ruben Neves was playing in the Champions League, youngest ever player in the Champions League, or youngest ever captain, or whatever it was. And then all of a sudden I'm playing with him. And the amount of respect I've got for him and his family, and Jota when they come over, I know now he's at Liverpool, incredible. Bolly coming over to the Championship, playing at Porto in the Champions League. These players coming to the football club. I just thought to myself, wow, my respect for you is through the roof. Because I just thought to myself, I'm going to help you as much as I possibly can, because I know if I look at you and learn off you, I'll get better as well.
So it's easy to follow their habits when we're talking about the things that are difficult, whether it's like change or ice baths or whatever. But you said a thing that's important, Conor. You said you feel better. So I know we're talking about performance. That's the number one thing. But I guess you sleep better. I guess you feel fresher. These little things that are ancillary benefits. Is that true? Has it changed just how you feel?
Changes your life. I'll be honest with you, it changes your life. You come to sleeping better. You mentioned sleep. Sleep's massive for us. Now, over the last few years, I've struggled with sleep because I've got 3 kids. The house is carnage. Do you know what I mean? My house is absolutely carnage. But it's honestly, it's massive that when you come in and you do the thing, it helps you. You wake up the next morning, if you've had a good sleep, you're in a better mood. Everyone is. Do you know what I mean? That's life. That's what happens. And I think if we hadn't do that, and I come in this morning and I'm not had a good sleep and I'm in a ratty mood, and you're going out to train and you're not fully at it, you're not giving yourself the best chance to get better. And I think that's in every walk of life. I think everybody in the world would say to us now that they want to improve in whatever they do, and we're no different as footballers. So I think it's important we stick to these rules that we have as a team and stick to these things, because as a person, as a player, you're going to improve, and that's all we want.
And you're actually changing the culture. Like, when Bolly scores in Istanbul and you win, if I understand correctly, both there, you said 5 minutes chat and then it's straight heads into recovery. You're actually doing physical recovery work with all kinds of scientific techniques in any dressing room after an away game, and on planes as well. And that little, because I think players used to take those as little private spaces. I've travelled on planes with Spain, for example, when they won the World Cup, and I watch Iniesta and Thiago and Jordi Alba. They'll play backgammon and mahjong and mad little games, and they'll spend 3 hours on a plane between Moscow and Tbilisi or whatever that, just totally focused, or they'll play cards or they'll talk shite or what. And that used to be one of the tiny little benefits you won for playing away, and you did a. Now the demands on you to be working are almost never ending. Dressing room, airplane, hotel.
Yeah, it's constant. It's constant, and it's something where we want to do it. We want to do it. We want to get better. But for example, you can still do your little things. Like, we've got this game that we played. Loads of us, the majority of the team plays. To be honest, we play a game called Werewolf, and it might make you laugh. Like it's like a card game, and Leander Dendonka. So I'll explain it to you. You might not be able to understand it right now, because you've got to play it. But
you've judged me well, but I want to hear it anyway. I'm not that sharp.
Yeah. So you have like 3 werewolves in the pack, and basically you have villagers, and you have an eye, and you have a witch, and then you get given a card, and you've got to go to sleep, and you've got Leander who'll tell the story. So then he'll say like 3 werewolves can wake up. So basically the idea of the game is you've got to find who the werewolves are. The werewolves have got to lie to the villagers. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm the werewolf now, and then you're looking at my face, I'll be like, I'm not a werewolf. I'm trying to catch. You know what I mean? All that sort. Mate, honestly, there's full-blown fights in the hotel. You're lying to me, and all this sort of thing. Honestly, but we were doing it before the game the other day, and half the boys round the circle that we were playing had complexes on. Do you know what I mean? Because they're doing the complex while they're playing the game. So it's fine. You can still do all your stuff whilst doing that, because I think it's important. Even the game we play, loads of different teams will play different stuff and do different things together. But this is a big part of how we do it, because the lads look forward to it on a Friday night. We get to the hotel and the lads are finishing off dinner. They're quick to go and finish off a game of Werewolf. So honestly, it's great.
This is a theme because we had ages ago with a good friend of mine, Darren Fletcher, and he tipped us off when we were sitting down with Michael Carrick to ask about the little handheld game that they played at Manchester United, and one of them was nicknamed Habit, and the other one was called Haywire. And as the story exploded, Fergie would be shouting down the plane. We get that fucking noise down. They'd be shouting at each other, and they talked about integrating new people. Join the game. Never mind, have you cut it in your clothes or your patter or you played well? If you're in the game, suddenly everything melts and there's unison 100%. And it's a good tool for unity, isn't it?
Massively. And I can only go off, like I said, I can only speak on behalf of myself and our team here. And like I said, we play that on a Friday, but now we've got Keanu Hoover, who just started with us, and he's playing. We've got a few of the young boys who play with us.
This is from Liverpool.
Yeah, the boy from Liverpool, yeah.
I went to see them in pre-season in Switzerland against Lyon last season. He was playing it right back. He just glided over the pitch. What a prospect. Fantastic, mate. And you know what? He's a brilliant lad as well. Real good lad. But I think coming into our team and knowing that, like we make sure they play. Do you know what I mean? We drag them. Come on, you come and play in Werewolf. Come and play Werewolf. Because honestly, you're talking about it the next day. We're on the bus going to game. The lads, what about you with the Werewolf last night? Hey, I'm not trusting you ever again. You can do. You know what I mean? One of them. But honestly, it's absolutely brilliant. But like I said, we had Keanu playing. We had Vitor playing. Fabio plays. Fabio Silva. They have all the new boys come in and we've got 16, 17, 18 lads who want to play the game, and it's great. But like I said, we can sit around here. The lads on the complex. The lads are doing the foam rolling, doing what they need to do to make sure they're right, but also playing with the lads as well. It's brilliant, honestly. I don't want to let you back to your life, but undoubtedly you'll have some, as we've detailed, some recovery to do. So we'll wind up by saying that our sponsors have a brilliant social media manager called Jake, and Jake says, you can tell Conor personally from me, he's a hero. So that's from Jake. Our
Thank you very much, mate.
Robert Ryan sent a brilliant question in. You've heard Chris. Lee Allen is a Sheffield United man, and he wants to hear about the heartbreak of going all the way to the semi-final and losing to a fellow guest on this series, Alex Bruce's Hall. But we haven't got time for that today. I want to close with a combination of two questions, if it's okay with you, Conor. Yeah. Robert Ryan said that you were interviewed recently while with England, and the 3-4-3 system that Southgate's looking for at the moment, said it was your favourite or best formation. He says it really caught your eye. And Robert asks, could you go into why? Is it the angles? Is it the front three element? He says it's his favourite formation too, and how much space with that formation you can cover on the pitch. And he also talks, about having seen this 3-4-3 at the dream team under Cruyff at Barcelona, Ajax sometimes having three at the back, not always. And clearly both he and I agree that you've got a fabulous passing range, absolutely fabulous passing range. And Bet365 also asked, that I think clicks into this, about being called up for England, what it means to you, and what it would mean to you if you made the 2020 final squad. That's from Bet365. If you combine these together, the pride, the deluge of love, that because the club opened a mailbox for you, didn't you? And it was just, it broke with people going, you're the best, thank fuck as a Wolves player in England. And obviously your interview after the game, I don't know, it just brought the country I'm a Scot. I'd quite England not to necessarily be winning World Cups during my lifetime. After I made it 6 feet under, win all the trophies you fucking want.
Yeah, just not
and yet, exactly. And yet, flipping that corner, 3-4-3, pride for England and making 2020. That's what we close on. 3-4-3, passing, judgment, time to read, suits you.
Do you know what? It's not just me. Because I've played it for so long now, mate, I look at 3-4-3 and I look at 3-5-2, and I watch every football game. Do you know what I mean? I'm massive on football. I'm a huge football fan. I'm first and foremost, I'm a fan. I'm like everybody else. I'm a fan. I'm just lucky enough I get to play on the pitch and watch my mates score, and I get to celebrate with them. I'm a huge football fan. So I watch every game that's on telly. And I watch games now, because I played the system so long, I watch games and think, I wonder how we could play 3-4-3. I wonder how this team could do 3-4-3. I probably shouldn't. I do. That's how I look at games now, because I played it for so long. And honestly, it's such a fantastic formation in terms of you can do anything with it. We play it a certain way. We can play it with 3 at the back, 5 at the back. You can play it higher up the pitch if you want to be more pressing and more aggressive with it. You can play it in so many different ways. And the manager at England, the gaffer at England, have got a certain way of playing it that we're all trying to adapt to. But I think it's such a flexible formation in terms of, like you said, the angles. I think I look at myself, and I can speak on behalf of myself, that in terms of when I play in the middle of a back 3, and a lot of people always say to me, you don't have to go deep. And that's true, but it's in terms of, there's always a reason as to why I go deep. And the reasoning to it is, if we're under a little bit of pressure, if one of our outside centre-halves under a little bit of pressure and I drop, I don't know, 15, 20 yards, it stops the striker from pressing me. And it gives me more time, it gives him more time, it gives people around me more time. And there's always a reason to. I have loads of people who say to me, you shouldn't be that deep. There's a reason. There's a reason as to why I do these things, and I think it's important that we stick to these sorts of things. Go on, mate. Yeah.
Well, so for example, when you've talked about Sevilla and Banega, you used the phrase "begin again." Now you can begin again in the midfield, or you can begin again in that 3 or 5 at the back, and effectively, as deep as you are, you can be doing a role that's a little bit similar to Banega, but in a different area of the pitch, because you're not just giving an out ball.
Yeah.
If the out ball is given to you, to your outside centre half, left or right of you, or even the keeper, just by giving it to you and in what part of the pitch you're in changes completely the position of the opposition and how they are or aren't stretching, particularly if you're doing that at high speed. I think the concept before, when I was growing up, was if the ball goes back to centre half, well, one, it's going to be lumped, and two, there's this urgency you talked about. Well, for fuck, give me. But now we're beginning to understand that recycling it is not just a way out of a pressure situation. It actually has an effect on the opposition, right?
Well, that's the biggest thing about it. That's the biggest thing about it. We're always trying to affect the opposition. You're playing against 11 players, 11 top players. And the one thing you want to do is try and affect the opposition, whether that's to bring them into places they don't want to be. So if I drop deep and a striker comes with me, you get Ruben or you get Joao or you get someone on the other side of the striker, go, okay, here's the ball then. Do you know what I mean? And off you go, you get the ball, because the strikers all of a sudden come so far with me, there's space the other side. So it's all about affecting the opposition. But the good thing with how we play at Wolves and the England setup as well is that the players around me, around whoever's playing, especially at Wolves when they're around me, they know how I'm going to do things. They know that whatever I do, it's to help them around me. So if I'm dropping deep, it's to say, right, all right, you can give me the ball, get you out of a little bit of pressure. If I'm dropping deep and I've got the ball, it's okay, go on, get yourself wide and I'll give you the ball back, or I'll miss you out if you've got someone coming to you and I'll go a little bit longer out to the full-backs. So it's important that we do it to affect the opposition, because that's what the game's all about, trying to affect an opposition to try and beat them. And I think if you can bring them into positions that they're not necessarily used to, so like I said, if someone comes with me, no problem, come and stand on me, but then that gets someone like Ruben, Neves, Joao Martino on the ball, and they're players in our team we want on the ball, by the way. They're technicians, they're players who want to play and affect the game. And I think that's massive about it, and that's something we've come to learn over the years, playing under the manager. But like I said, I watch it with other teams, and I watch other teams playing, and I go, if he could play wing back, he'd be a great wing back. I bet he'd be a great right centre half. I bet do you know what I mean? That sort of thing. And I bet you could play that 10 yards further up the pitch if you want to be more aggressive. You can play it in so many different ways, mate. I absolutely love the formation, but it's probably because I've been in it for so long now.
I understand it. And the pride thing is what we need to stop on, because you are Scotland's favourite Englishman. And I said at the beginning of the interview that I've spent my life kind of wearing my heart on my sleeve, because this is a joyful industry to be in, whether you're talking about it, writing about it, or playing it. Yeah. I think that's what you did in your interview, but I think it represents accurately what it means to you playing for your country.
Honestly, I don't 100% know where to start with it, because I've dreamed about it all my life, and most people will say the same about playing for the country. Is this like a bit of a cliche? But I think for me, I mentioned to you before about being a football fan. That's what I am first and foremost. I love football. I love everything that football brings. I love what football gives to people. When we never had football in the lockdown, I seen what it done to the world. Do you know what I mean? And without football, for me, like life's life. Do you know what I mean? Football's everything.
You feel lost.
Honestly, and I feel like I looked at the lockdown and I seen people without football, and it weren't just me. It was people around me going, "What the hell do we do this weekend?" You didn't even know it was Saturday or Sunday without football. Do you know what I mean? You don't even know what the weekend is. It's mad. So I think first and foremost, I'm a football fan, but every time there's an international break before I was involved, and I'm a player who lives for the present. I say it all the time. I'll never look too far ahead of what can be. I'll never look too far ahead of what can you do in 2, 3, 4 years' time. I don't know. I don't know, because what I'm here now is trying to affect Wolves now, and I never ever know what's going to happen. So I'll always live for the present. So I've always watched the international breaks. Always. I always watch England. Always, without fail. If there's an England game on, I always watch it, because I enjoy it. I enjoy watching football. I'm from England. I love England. I love everything about it, whether it's a World Cup, a Euros, a World Cup qualifier against whoever. I always tend to watch it. But that phone call, when I got I've told a story about the phone call. I was taking my little boys for a walk over to his friends. And that phone call that I got off Gareth Southgate, it's giving me goosebumps now thinking about it. It was incredible. I ran home, told my wife was crying. And the amount of lives it affects, just one phone call, that's what football does. Do you know what I mean? So the pride of playing for my country, and the feeling when I scored in the interview after that you're talking about, that was just like living for the present. That was just something that happened that night. something that a young lad had dreamed of all his life. And luckily, as a football fan, I get to live it. Do you know what I mean? So that was just a feeling of pride and emotion and everything coming out, because I always dreamed of playing for England. Did I dream of scoring? No, because I don't score many. So I didn't really dream of scoring.
You used to. Well, look, there's a thread that ties all of this together, because Steve Cooper is a world champion now.
Yeah.
One of your junior coaches.
Great fella, yeah. Great person.
Raheem Sterling has been with you since your youth league days, and the two of you are now staples for England. It's remarkable how important you've become to the actual quality and the enjoyment of England's play now that you're in the side. And there's a generation coming through, two generations coming through that have won world cups for England. You're a European champion under 17 level. It might be, don't think too far ahead, don't listen to my shite, but it might be that you're coming to the boil at exactly the right time that England might lift a trophy. So keep your puffy trousers going.
Yeah.
Always watch out for the werewolves. They're the ones who carry two razors in a bag, and then you'll know. Keep doing the things you're doing, Conor, because I'm glad you're happy and you're enjoying yourself. But for people who love football and who hate the way that football is misused and misappropriated and besmirched by people who don't know fuck all about it, guys like you reacting like you do and living the dream, it's just gold dust. And you've shared a lot of time with us generously today. It's time to go on back to Mrs. C and the kids.
Yeah.
From the big interview, thank you very, very much indeed. I hope we haven't been too weird or bored you.
Thank you for having me, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. And anytime you need me, give us a shout, okay? No problem at all.
I'll see you in Barcelona soon.
Top man. Thank you, my mate.